This is M.Fasis, DJ, producer, DJ, digger, all things vinyl. And I pretty much was invited out by my man Daryl D to come and talk about my top 5 records that I don't plan on selling. Moved out here from Jersey, have my crew back there. Shout out to Joey Dynamite. Yes, I'm a digger. That's pretty much it. Those who know me, and the kind of tastes and records that I go for. Pretty much listen to everything. Of course, I started off listening to the basics, the Stevie Wonders, the Marvin Gayes, the Aretha Franklins, and then at some point it just hit me like, look, maybe I think I should, dig a little deeper, because I knew there was more out there, even before I started digging. And then fast forward, hooked up with my man, made albums, made tons of tracks together, and we'd go to digging sessions, record shows, record stores, and used to just kill shit. And for me, it's almost been like, as far as digging, there are a lot of records that are on my wants list that that I would love to have, that I haven't gotten around. There's just so much out there, but I've kind of like started my own lane per se, where as far as digging, there's a lot more out there. The stuff that people tend to sleep on is kind of the stuff I usually go for, so I'm kind of like very under the radar, because it's always cool to find out that there's so much more out there. Plus sampling laws, I'm not trying to like much love to the James Browns, the George Clintons, all those guys who paved the way for all the other artists. But I think a lot of people tend to forget that there were a lot of artists out there that were like probably on the verge of making it and didn't make it, and they were just heard locally. So I always give a shout out to those artists. But anyway, I'm gonna get to my records, my top 5 records that I do not plan on selling. All right, so first record. This is by a group. I think they're from Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Chicago, Illinois. So one of those records, kind of has like a little bit of backstory. At the time, like just going through personal stuff. Wanted to go digging. And I found this record I found this record about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's a gospel record. Name of the group is Trinity Choral Ensemble, and the name of this album is called I'll Tell You the World. Little story behind this record before I found it, because I'd actually seen it in the record store. There's a record store, I think it's in Mesa, Peoria. I forgot where I found it, but I do remember seeing it there several times, going through the bins, listening to it. Well, not listening to it, looking at it, and just like, okay, I'm gonna come back for it. This happened like maybe like 3 or 4 times. And then I do remember, I think it was December 31st. It had been, it was definitely December 31st. I think it was 2021, 2022. I went back to the record store. I actually picked it up and I brought it home. And bro, let me tell you, like this is a great gospel record. It's pretty much definitely gospel, but it's very on the borderline between funk and soul, and it has some very dope up-tempo tracks on it. It's just a good listen overall. Not a record that I would sell. I've seen a few copies pop up, but from what I've seen, not that many people know about it or have even heard about it. I mean, a lot of these records, I pretty much stumble across them and pick them up if the cover looks interesting. I go by the years, things like that, instruments. If it intrigues me, I'll definitely pick it up and give it a shot. And honestly, with my instinct at this point, 3 out of 4 times, like it's dope. Every now and then you have those hit or misses, but this definitely wasn't a miss. If you do see it, come across it, pick it up, and that's my first record. All right, so record number 2. This is another record that, first and foremost, I'm definitely not selling this. And on top of that, all the diggers, the beat heads know, they've seen or heard a particular song, if not the whole album, which in itself is incredible. It's Gap Mangione's Diana in the Autumn Wind. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of, in order for you to like really appreciate it, I would definitely tell you to go on YouTube, or if you're out in the field digging, definitely check it out. Great record. The popular track, the title track, Diana in the Wind, is what Dilla used for The Official. Yeah, just a great track in itself, and been used by a few other people. People Under the Stairs. They're actually the first ones that I heard use this, I think. But I think that was around 2000, the second album, Question in the Form of an Answer. And then I think The Official, what was it, the J-Lib record. Yeah, that's where this song is from. But anyway, has its very jazzy moments, very, very musical, a lot of great arrangements. The musicmanship on this record is incredible. Yeah, I was actually at a record show out with the family at the time. Yeah, I saw this in this guy's crates, and I was like, yeah, how much you want for it? And he's like, yeah, come see me once you're done. And I think I paid about 40 or 50 for it, which this record is always going to be in demand. It's easily can be a $700, $800 record, depending on the condition and all that. But yeah, great record. Diana in the Autumn Wind, Gap Mangione, great album. If you do see it, check it out. Definitely worth the listen. All right, so record number 3. Yeah, this record is just funny. Like when I look at this record and I think about like my travels as far as places I've been, little mom and pop shops, little thrift stores, just like streets of New York City, coming across a bunch of empty crates, just the stories. But this one, it's actually, let me introduce the record. It's Barry Zweig, or Zweig, I should say. It's Barry Zweig. And it's I name of the album is Desert Vision. Another simple black and white record, not a whole lot of crazy art, but yeah, this record I remember distinctly. I was out in Glendale, and there was this store. It's like a memorabilia store, and they had memorabilia. They had like action figures, whole bunch of like stuff of that nature. But they actually had a record, a couple bins, I should say. They had a couple bins, and I went through the bins. I saw this record. They had a decent selection. A lot of stuff that like I would pick up, but I have things of that nature. Like let's say, for example, back in the days, when I used to dig, I used to like pick up a lot of the Command records. The ones with the dots and the very minimal art. I used to pick up a lot of those records, so they had a lot of those, things of that nature, where it was kind of like, okay, because for me, like my tastes tend to grow. Like I try not to listen to anything that sounds the same or anything similar. But anyway, saw this record there, like $60. It was up on the wall. I asked the guy, I was like, yeah, could you do any more on that? Because as you can see, it's a bit damaged, a bit water damaged. So I asked him if he could knock anything more off of it. He didn't budge. So I was like, all right. I was like, here we go. So I get the $60, buy the record, take it home. Incredible record. Like, actually, this record was actually, for those of my, diggers and beat heads and people who know artists out there, If you're familiar with what's his name, David Grusin, of GRT fame, great jazz musician in his own right. Yeah, he actually co-signed this record. I think it was recorded in California. I mean, it says Desert Vision, but But yeah, it's an LA Records, California record. Incredible jazz, incredible top 10. It's not on YouTube, which is great. It's not on YouTube. When I Google it, it actually takes me to Discogs, and come to find out, I actually came out good buying this for $60, because I think I've seen a couple, maybe one or two copies floating around, and it's easily about a $200 record, in better condition, of course. But I'm glad that I found it. And a little secret, I actually sampled a couple joints off of this, so no one's gonna know what it is. So when I found this, heard it, it was sampler food. Put in my sampler, I was like, yes. One of those records where it's like good from top to bottom, and I don't regret that 60. So yeah, Barry Zweig, Desert Vision. If you do see it, check it out. I think you may find a few songs, or maybe one or two songs on YouTube, but the main killers, you have to have this album. So yeah, if you do see it, check it out. Barry Zweig. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, if he's still living alive. But yeah, Desert Vision, check it out. Great record, and that is record number 3. All right, so record number 4. It's a gospel record by this lady. Let's see, by Miss E. Cleveland Reams, out of Oakland, California. Standard gospel record, but there's an interesting backstory. Cause I think I found this record. I don't even remember. It may have been Revolver, maybe, when they were open. Yeah, but I do remember finding this record, and the backstory behind this record, I actually looked it up. Pretty much, if she's still alive, here's a crazy thing. Here's an interesting little story. I found this record. I used it as far as as far as vocals, because let me just give a little overall review of the record. Basically, it's a gospel record. A lot of heartfelt screaming and vocals, and supposedly, well, not supposedly, according to what I looked up, this lady was undergoing an operation, and she lost, I think, a lung. And this album was actually recorded after her first lung was removed. But what amazes me the most is the fact that despite, her having lost one lung, bruh, she is screaming to the Lord. She is screaming her heart and soul out on this record, talking to the people. There's some music to it, and it's standard, choir, church song, foot stomping, church choir music. But there's a lot of dialogue in between too, and that's what makes it even interesting. So, like I was saying, to my little backstory behind this record, once I found it, I used it. I was looked it up. Wasn't much information on it, but I did find out that she was alive. I think I found this record maybe 2017, 2018, and I contacted her, and I reached out to her. I said, "Hello, Miss Reams. I'm a producer. I collect records. I came across your record, and I was interested in knowing, when and what happened during the recording of this record." Needless to say, I think at this point she was, probably in her 80s. God bless her soul if she's still alive. She never got back to me. But as far as, the heartfelt, soul and, just praising of the Lord's name on this record is just incredible, considering the backstory. So, yeah, this is one record that I really won't sell. I mean, granted, it doesn't have any breaks or anything like that, but you know, on a nice Sunday, this is something that you can just throw on and appreciate. For me, it's like appreciating the music, the story behind it, and of course, you know, the vocal chops that I'm definitely gonna use at some point. But yeah, definitely good record. Evangelist E. Cleveland Reams, The Holy Ghost is a mind blower. If you find it, check it out. Definitely dope listen. All right, I think this is record number 4. Record number 5. What am I talking about? Yeah. Not a lot I can say about this record. I mean, it's one of those records that, you know, kind of stumbled across. It's by a group called Love Ship. Killer record. Yeah, just another one of those records. Not necessarily one that I found out in the field, but I'd seen copies of. Actually, I think I'd seen. Shout out to my man Mike Wallace. I think he had a blog back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, and yeah, I think it was called the Michael Wallace, something of that nature. But anyway, shout out to him. He would post this. I mean, he posted this in one of his blogs. You know, kind of read up on it. It just looked interesting. So from that point, it had pretty much been on my wants list. Fast forward, this was the late 2000s, early 2010s, mind you, as I was saying. Fast forward to I would say 2015, 2016. There was a copy floating around on Discogs. Copped it, and yeah, it's a very dope record. It's a good combination of dance funk music of the time, along with some pretty nice ballads. And yeah, as you can see on the cover, you know, they're all in space outfits, and so yeah, they get real funky on this one. I mean, they're all in space outfits, but yeah, killer record. Like I said, I found it. It goes for a lot more than what I paid for it, considering mine's got like a bit of, you know, water damage, but you know, it plays great. Yeah, I found this online. I picked it up, and you know, I think I may have seen maybe a couple copies floating around for more than what I paid for. It's easily a pricey record, even the 45s. If you're familiar with the Cashier label, definitely check them out. They definitely have some heat. But yeah, so pretty much great record, funk and soul from top to bottom. There's definitely not a whole lot that, you know, I end up skipping. It's just something that you just let it ride. You know, if it was a CD, it would play right through. But you know, for a record like this, I don't mind getting up and flipping over to the other side. So when you do see it, it's killer. It's great, by Love Ship. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Alright, so just did my top 5. I did have an honorable mention as far as personal favorite that I felt the need to kind of like sneak in. This is an interesting 45. I actually have a little bit of a story. It's like, you know, you're always on the hunt for records. You know, you have an never-ending want list like everyone else. Heard this record probably, I would say late, the early 2010s. A copy popped up on eBay. It was like 2015 for like $10. At the time, you know, actually I think it was a bid, because if it was buy it now, I definitely would have copped it. That's definitely for sure. But yeah, I saw this for like, I think it was, you know, people were bidding on it. I kind of backed out of the auction at that point because the price is going up. Fast forward to about, yeah, this is like 2015 when I, you know, first came across it on eBay. And fast forward to, this is actually probably about a couple years ago, I would say 2021, 2022. Came across a copy. It wasn't $10, but it was actually $20. Picked it up. It's by Patty D, and the name of the song is Now or Never. Um, for those that follow me on IG, I actually posted this recently, and it's just such an incredible record. Um, when I hear it, it kind of reminds me of, you know, if Blondie had a runner up during that time, during the Wild Style time, this would be it. Incredible break. The vocals are crazy, and this is something I could definitely picture, like, you know, cats like, you know, Flash or whoever back in the day, just having doubles of this and going back and forth on it. It's one of those type of 45s. Found it for like 25, and actually goes for more. Periodically I might check, and there's actually a couple copies if you're interested. If you're willing to dish out 150, you know, $200 for it. So yeah, it's very, very of that time. Sounds like very 79, 80, right there, 79, 80, 81. And I think it was actually recorded in 80. Yeah, it was recorded in 1980. If you ever see it, by Patty D, We've All Had Enough. Incredible record. Definitely worth the money. If you come across it, do not pass it up like I did. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So just want to say thank you to my man Daryl D, you know, for having me on his great show, which I suggest everyone checks out, and, you know, just sharing a little bit of my collection with you guys. To all my beat diggers, you know, record collectors, this one's for you. So I want to thank you again, and peace.